about a year and a half ago, I made a few videos about my experience with self-publishing my book. And over those 3 videos or so, I told you guys pretty much everything that I know and my entire experience. So today, I've brought a special guest on my show. This is Pat Flynn here. Thanks so much for being here, Pat.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
Yeah, and Pat's written 3 books now, and he's published each of them in a slightly different way.
Right.
And he's self-published all of them, though, right?
Correct.
So I wanted him to share with you guys his experience with these different options for self-publishing and what's been good, what's been bad, what he'd recommend, so that if you guys are writing a book right now and you're thinking about self-publishing, you can get some advice from someone who's already tried out the options. So maybe save you guys a little bit of a hassle.
Cool. Yeah, writing books is great. I mean, you can build yourself as an authority. You can teach a lot of people. You can reach people around the world. It's just so amazing. And I know you've experienced this when you see like pictures of people holding your book.
Yes.
It's like one of the most incredible feelings. Right?
Recently, someone came up to me and they were like, "Are you Gillian Perkins?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "I read your book when it first came out and I put it in my book and it's in the bibliography."
That's
and
so awesome.
That was so awesome. And I obviously never heard of this person before. I looked them up. They have a book on Amazon and yeah, sure enough, my book is featured in their book.
That's great.
So yeah, I mean, I wrote a book when I had no audience whatsoever, no audience, and I had like even a really small group of family and friends. And it was amazing what some simple marketing strategies did to really blow up my audience.
Right. And Amazon is obviously the place that most of us are going to focus on when self-publishing. First off, my first book was written in 2013, and it's, my story is I was laid off as an architect, I was let go, and then I became an entrepreneur as a result of that. And then being laid off, which was terrible, was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. That book was called Let Go. I actually have it here, but this is not what it looked like. It was actually a Kindle book only. Up until last year.
Yeah, so I actually didn't know it existed before this. I thought that you had written a new book, and I was like, when did Pat do that?
No, it was just an Amazon book because that was the easiest. That was sort of like the easiest way to just get started, and there was a lot of people who were able to find me and my brand through that book, that was the first introduction to me for a lot of people. Even though I had a big blog and even though I had a podcast, it was amazing to see that, well, a book can be a great generator for audiences too.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my experience with my book. Not only did it take me from 0 to audience, right? But it also took me from 0 income to making money online, which that was crazy to me because I thought, publishing a book as an unknown author, no one will read it, no one will buy it. I didn't expect it to go anywhere.
Yeah, and you have the machine of Amazon and all the algorithms there in your favor as well, which is really neat. But with that book, I mean, writing it wasn't too difficult because it was just my story. Like I knew my story better than anybody, and so I could just write it down as more of a memoir. So I didn't really feel I was like, it wasn't like a business book, like what I really, really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so that was just a Kindle book. And then in 2014, I started writing this book. It's called Will It Fly? And this was a chore. I started writing it and I gave up after 6 months because it was just way too difficult. And then I actually had to hire a coach to help me. And the reason why I hired a coach, really why I wanted to commit to this book, is because my audience who I had surveyed was like, our number one problem was understanding whether or not we were in the right business. Like, how do I make sure as I'm building my business for the first time that this is even the right thing to do?
Yeah, and I'm glad that we're talking about this book right now because I actually mention this book relatively frequently on my channel because a lot of people, are trying to figure out what business they should start and they're wondering, will it fly?
Yeah.
Right? And so I refer this to them as a resource. I'm like, here's a video about, a few things you can do, but if you want a lot more information, this book.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was weird because I was a blogger initially and I can write a 5,000 word blog post in like 3 hours. I couldn't even write like a sentence in a 4-hour block of time because I was just so worried. Like this idea of a book was so big and so grand. I was like, every word has to be perfect. The first thing my coach taught me is like, your first draft is going to be the worst draft. It's going to be crap, and it has to be crap. You have to get all that muck out, and through that muck, you're going to see some great things. So eventually, he just gave me the courage to eventually never hit delete, which was hard for me to do. Your writing brain is different than your editing. And in order to create a great book with great stories and great things to share with people, you have to be in that mode where you're not editing. Realizing that your next phase is after your first draft is that editing phase, is that filtering phase to find all the good stuff, and then you write the next draft. And it's so much easier to do it after you have it all out there. I think, was it Anne Lamont, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But she had mentioned that like basically you're just throwing up on the paper, right? It's going to be bad, and that's okay. I thought it had to be perfect the first go around. Like a blog post is mostly perfect when you're written.
Yeah. That's interesting. That was my same experience because this is the book that I wrote around the same time. I wrote this a little bit after you you said 2015.
It was published 2016.
In 2016, I'm like, when did I write this book? I read this book about 3 years ago. So 2016
Cool.
also,
Yeah,
So
nice.
and I had kind of a similar experience. I was so afraid I was going to get stuck that I was just like, I'm writing the whole thing in a month.
Oh, good for you.
So I did kind of how, and I'm sure you'll share how you wrote the second book, but I was just scared. So I was just like charging through it no matter what. And then like 6 months of editing later.
Right. There's a lot of editing. And I remember with this book specifically, I was writing in a tool called Scribe, which was a tool that a lot of my author friends were like, you got to use this tool. It can help you organize. And I was just like, I don't like this. And
So you didn't like it?
I didn't
Okay.
like it, no. And different tools work with different people, And for me, my coach was like, well, what do you use to write blog posts? And I was like, I use Google Docs. And he was like, okay, take this book, you have the outline, make a Google Doc for each separate chapter, and just treat it like a blog post. And I was like, okay, I'll try this. And it was just like, bam, it was coming out.
Yeah.
Because I just erased everything else but that chapter I was on. And I wrote it like a blog post. And at the end, you just put those blog posts together.
Yeah, so if you guys are having trouble getting through your book, then I think that is a great strategy to use. I wrote mine all in Word. I didn't even know Scribe existed until I finished writing it. And I had a lot of trouble actually keeping mine organized. I think, keeping them in separate documents might be a good way to do it, like the chapters, I mean. But I'd put it all in this massively long Word document. And then I finished it, and right about that time, someone told me about Scribe. And I was like, that could have been really helpful. So it's interesting. It's interesting to hear, like, your experience, because I've only heard, people saying, you have to use this.
Right.
But it's important to use what works for you, right?
And I think it's been really helpful with my next book because I spent a lot of time with the outlining process. And the better the outline is, the better it is that your flow is going to be when you start writing. Because you kind of know where things are going. The book's already done if it's outlined. You just have to now write all the words to support that outline, right? And I have a very specific outline process that involves Post-it notes. And I have a video about this, and I love it. And really what you do is you take a Post-it note, a bunch of Post-it notes, and you just do a brain dump, right? This is before you start writing any words in the book. You're creating your outline. You have your topic or the transformation, what it is that you want your audience to come out with after reading, right? That's your main topic. But then what you do is on each Post-it note, just one idea. In no order whatsoever, just whatever comes to mind. Just you're spitting it all out, all these Post-it notes, and then you have the sea of Post-it notes, and you're like, all right, what goes together? And then you can start moving them, and you start to see like clusters, right? And then in those clusters, you go, oh, well, this cluster should be first, and this cluster is second, this cluster is third. And what eventually happens is by magic, those clusters become the chapters, and then you can order the chapters, and then you're like, there's your outline. And it works every single time. I do that for online courses. We do that when we go on vacations. We use Post-it notes. I did this when we were redesigning our office in my home. Post-it notes and just like brain dump, hierarchy and organizing. It's a killer strategy.
Yeah, I think I've heard actually Amy Porterfield talk about using that for creating a course outline also.
She uses that too.
Yeah, and that reminds me of two different random things. One is sometimes when there's a room in my house that's really disorganized and I want to get it organized, but I don't even know where the things should go, I just start making piles of stuff that go together. Like, I don't know what those piles should be called, but I'm just like, these things, they all kind of go in the same place or something like that.
I like that.
So I like that you're, just brain dumping, and then you're starting to make some order, even if you don't know what that order is yet. So you're not like starting with a chapter outline. Right.
I mean, our brains do a great job of coming up with ideas, but it's terrible at doing it in a specific order, as you're coming up with them. So this book, Will It Fly, was published through, it was called Create Space.
Yes.
Back in 2016. Amazon then bought Create Space, so it's within Amazon now, but it's essentially print on demand, which is great because you can upload your files, and yes, you get like for me, I recommend getting a great copy editor and people to help
you. Can't edit your own book.
No, and it's not just editing like the words and grammar. It's editing, the order and the stories and missing holes. Those are so important too. That would be a content editor, or there's different names for them, but you can get as much help as you like. But I think a great designed cover is really important, especially on Amazon, because that's what people see first.
That is why this book did well.
Yours is great. I love it.
Yours is great too.
Thank you.
This came from me not having any idea what I wanted, asking a bunch of designers for telling them what I thought I wanted, and then finally being like, I have no idea what I wanted, and just hired a good designer and said, I don't know what I want. Here's 2 things I care about. Run with it. Yeah. And she came up with this, and this is what we went with, and it has nothing to do with, it was not my idea, but it works really well.
Anybody who's OCD is like, oh my gosh, I want to put that there right now, I need to open this book.
Yes, and I think just having a bright color is useful, right?
Bright color.
So bright color, right? Not too many words on the cover, that's the ultimate bright color, right?
Yeah. Well, I designed this one. This became a Kickstarter campaign to bring the first hardcover book at a Let Go, which was again the Kindle book. And so we did a Kickstarter campaign. So even though the book was 5 years old, we were able to make about $80,000.
Yeah, I love that you
For our
repurposed
fans.
it in that
And
way.
it was for the fans who've been a part of my community for a while. And it's, it's big, and it's designed to be a reminder for people to let go of what is holding them back, and all the constraints in their life. Anyway, it's like a coffee table book, essentially.
Yeah. So how about you share what the publishing option you used for your last book was, and then let's talk about these like pros and cons, the experience of each of them.
Yeah, so we have the create space, like for Will It Fly in your book, which is great because when people order it, then they just print it and send it. There's no inventory, you don't have to pay anything,
So you're not paying them to print the copies up front. Instead, just when someone buys a copy, they print it right then. That's what print on demand means.
Correct.
So this is your most recent book here, right?
Yes, it's called Superfans. I love the cover. It's big, it's bold,
Yes.
it's like in and itself expresses what this book is about. It's not about followers, subscribers, customers. It's about getting super fans in your business. It's bright, it's red, but it wasn't through Amazon's sort of self-printing. It's not print on demand either, but it's still self-published. So I went with a company called New Type Publishing,
Okay.
which is kind of a hybrid model. So a lot of people just were unhappy with the traditional publishing model, which is it's very old. It takes a long time, and there's hardly any royalties there. Yes, there are advances, but the average advance I think is not even $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, it costs a lot of money to run a publishing company, I guess.
Right, but you get the distribution, which is why you go there. You can get in Barnes & Noble, you can get in airports and other bookstores when you go through traditional models because they have those relationships. With New Type Publishing and all these other kinds of hybrid models, you can keep your book self-published, you own the book yourself, so you have the rights to it, and you share a little bit of the royalties with this company in exchange for some distribution too. The hard part about this is it's not print on demand, therefore you have to kind of order them ahead of time.
Okay.
Meaning, so we printed out 15,000 copies of this, and they're at New Type Publishing in their storage warehouse. And when the book publishes on August 13th, they're sending them out to Amazon already. So when you sell books through Amazon, it's not like Amazon Kindle. You have to go through like an Amazon seller sort of back end to sell products, and your product is the book, and then you can have it on pre-order. It's a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
But New Type has been taking care of everything to a point where it kind of feels like traditional. They're taking care of a lot of those, mechanisms for making this work. But the cool thing is, the royalties are great over time, unlike traditional. And the other cool thing is the quality is so much better. I mean, you even made some comments about how it feels, how it
feels
looks.
really
It has a
good.
dust jacket on it.
I know, that's insane, right?
Right? Like
Dust jacket on self-published book. Yeah, the paper quality is a lot better. As far as like the content inside the book, I mean, the words were up to you, right? But I mean, the way it's formatted and stuff, that all could have been accomplished with
For
Create
sure.
Space.
Yeah.
But the quality of the materials is the big difference, I think.
It's the big difference, and the fact that it is, guess what, also going to be in Barnes & Noble and Target
Yeah.
and airports too, because they have those relationships. So that was the secret kind of.
Which you managed to accomplish that, a little bit of that, with your last book, with a lot of extra work.
I did,
right?
yeah. So with Will It Fly, one of my big goals in my life, and I had mentioned this on my blog in 2012, was to write a book and bring my family to a bookstore. I was just stoked that this book, Will It Fly, even though it's self-published, became a Wall Street Journal bestseller.
That's crazy.
Like, I didn't even know that was possible.
Do you know how many other books have accomplished that?
There's been a few. I don't know.
Just like a small handful?
Yeah. But that was a really cool thing. But I was like, it's still not at the bookstore. And for me, even though that's not really important in terms of like, this reached so many people without a bookstore, right?
Yes.
But I still wanted to bring my kids and like show them.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, there's got to be a way to do this. So I got this book on Ingram Spark, which is like the where Barnes & Noble and a lot of other bookstores go to see what books they can then order.
Okay.
So step one was to get it on Ingram Spark, in addition to having it on Amazon. So it was
How difficult was that?
It was easy.
Okay.
It was just like putting it on Amazon. And then I actually went to Barnes & Noble and I was like, is Will It Fly available? And they're like, no, we don't have it in the store, but we can order it for you. And I was like, okay. And that's because it was in Ingram Spark, because they get their books from there. So I just tested that. I tried it. Really funny story. I was like, hey, do you have Will It Fly by Pat Flynn? And they were like, no, we don't have it. Would you like to order it? And we could bring it in here for you in 2 days. And I was like, yeah, sure. And they were like, okay, what's your name, sir? And I was like, Jim. And they're like, all right, Jim, we'll give you a call. I gave them my phone number, right? 2 days go by, and I forget about the whole thing. And I'm driving in the van with my wife, and I put the speaker on because I get a phone call, and it's Barnes & Noble. And they go, hello, this is Barnes & Noble. Is Jim there? And my wife is like, And I go, this is Jim. And she's just like rolling her eyes right next to. Anyway, I go to the bookstore and pick it up. I'm like, whoa, I got this in Barnes & Noble. That's cool, but it's still not on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
But now that they know, it's there, like, if a bunch of people ask for it, like, they have to put it on the shelves, right? Like, it's a demand thing. So I went to my audience and sent an email. I was like, hey, okay, guys, on this date, we're all going to go to Barnes & Noble, and you're going to ask for Will It Fly? It's not going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to see if we can make a movement here and see if it'll actually work to get it on the shelves.
Yeah,
So-
and you framed this as an experiment.
As an experiment,
like,
right?
guys, let's do an experiment together.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really fun.
And I think there were like over 600 people who did it, which is a testament to building super fans.
Right.
And 2 weeks later, I went into a Barnes & Noble close to the border in San Diego, and there it was. And I was with my kids, and we filmed it, and it was really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So with a lot of hard work, you managed to get it there. But now publishing this most recent book in this different way with, what's the name of the company?
New Type.
New Type.
Publishing.
Okay. So it's going to happen a lot more automatically.
Yeah, it's already, it's actually, I just found this out because one of my fans was like, Pat, it's already available at Barnes & Noble, like in these bookshelves. I saw it. And I was like, it's not available yet. How is that possible? And I figured out that Barnes & Noble will, in some stores, just put it out early because they have it already.
That's
Because
interesting.
we ship it to them ahead of time,
Uh-huh.
and they just might just, because they have it, put it up, even though it's
Interesting.
not launched yet. Very few, only high-level authors get that, cut off. Oh, you can only sell on this date. So
Yeah.
some of my fans already found it, which is really cool,
Yeah.
and sent me pictures.
That's
So
really interesting.
it's in Barnes & Noble, and it's self-published already, and it's kind of crazy.
So let's talk about kind of quick comparison between this. So, and I don't know if you actually, before we get to that, how did this one actually get published when it got published as a print copy?
Sure. So this was print copied, not in any stores or anything. It was created and designed actually through a company called Page 2 in Canada, and I got that through a recommendation. This one is even more beautifully designed, and this was all about coffee table. It's color on the inside. We had a designer create sketches for it, and it's really meant to just
So
wow.
did you
that
buy
experience.
these copies in advance?
I bought these copies in advance as well.
But you did it with a Kickstarter, right? So you got the money
I got
first
the
and
money
then
at
you,
the time.
yeah.
Right.
So you got to buy them afterwards, but only because of that special situation.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Which is kind of a unique thing. I think the Superfans book is more, modern and to date, and then our strategy of using Amazon, which is still a great one,
Yeah.
can work too. And if you're building a business and you just want a book for authority purposes, that is good enough. And I would highly recommend doing that.
Or maybe if you're doing your very first book and you just want to get a book out there.
Yeah.
So cost. When I published my book with Create Space, it cost me the money of the editor and the formatter and things like that. I had to do all that myself, so I had to pay those people. It cost me a few $100s, maybe most of $1,000
Yeah.
for all the editors, because I had a few different people edit it. But then the actual publishing didn't cost really anything aside from, like we're saying, ordering those advanced copies that cost a few dollars.
Right.
But not much at all.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Was that your same experience?
Will It Fly was a little bit more expensive because I spent a lot more time on it.
Oh yeah, you said you hired a coach.
I hired a coach for it, and then also we hired kind of primo editors for it as well. For I have a giant audience, and I've had this really high level of quality of stuff, so I just wanted to make it great
Yeah.
for people. But you don't need to spend, I think, probably $7,000 to $8,000 overall.
Okay. Yeah.
But not tens of thousands, and
Yeah.
we definitely had to put a large upfront cost to order the 15,000. It's only like $3 a book, but I mean that's $45,000 that we have to put up front. But based on the success of Will It Fly and the pre-order sales, we know those are going to go pretty quickly.
So when you said 78,000, were you talking about Will It Fly, or were you talking about Superfans?
Will It Fly?
Okay, so you spent 7,000 or 8,000 on this. I think I spent probably about 1,500, all said and done with the cover design and everything. Obviously, this option could be done for way cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
If you wanted to edit your own book, it could be done for almost free.
You can make your own
really.
cover on Canva.
Yeah. There's lots of options there. I mean, you could spend just a few dollars on getting those advanced copies, and so if you have no money, then that could be a good option. And then here you spent, was it only the money you spent on the advanced copies? Or well, not the advanced copies, but I mean, did you have to pay for the cover
We
design?
had to pay for the cover design. We had to pay for the the editing and stuff was actually done by my team.
Okay.
So
That's
in a sense, it
interesting.
was free, but also obviously
So,
been paying them.
but you were paying them.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you paid for editing. So the company that published this, they didn't provide editing and things like that. They're providing.
They do provide that, but we didn't pay them. For
I
that.
see, okay.
Yeah,
So
but
what you paid them for was actually printing the book basically, and then distributing it.
Correct,
Okay.
correct, which is really cool.
So
And
what
then,
was your total investment for this book?
I mean, including team costs, I mean, I would probably guess around $15,000.
15?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's including, but that's not including buying the advanced copy.
Okay, well then it would be, 15 plus 45, $60,000.
Okay, $60,000. But like you said, you knew from the success of this first book roughly how many
That's
copies.
coming back. That's
yeah,
coming
yeah,
back,
that money's
for sure.
coming back.
It's,
okay.
it's weird when you get to this level in business. It's like these larger investments start to happen in equipment and in
Yeah.
books, and you can kind of predict what's going to happen when you.
Yeah,
get to
which
that
is
point.
really nice because the first time you do anything, it's such like a shot in the dark. You have no idea, when you first launch a book or first launch a course, how many people are going to buy it. Even if you have done some launches in the past, if it's a new type of product.
Right.
I mean, like you recently launched a physical product.
Yeah.
It's called the Switch Pod. It's pretty cool. Anyway, but so you didn't know what to expect with that.
No,
right?
and that's why we kickstarted it because,
Mm-hmm.
and we just shared our idea and our prototype, and people loved it. We made about $500,000 in that
Yeah.
launch, which is crazy.
But you didn't know what to expect.
No.
Yeah, but so after writing a book, then you knew this was a better option for you than it would have been if you tried to do it the first time.
Right.
Because you would have been guessing more with how many books to buy.
Right.
I mean, like me, if I had published my first book that way, I probably would have bought, maybe 500 copies, and I would have felt like I was really risking a lot. Not because it would be so
Totally,
much money, but
totally.
like 500 people buy my book. In the first week, 10,000 people bought this book.
Right.
And I was, where did those people come from?
Right.
But I
That's
never
awesome.
would have bought that many copies, and then my book wouldn't have, become a bestseller on Amazon. That couldn't have happened because there wouldn't have even been that many copies for people to buy.
For sure. Start simple. If this were easy for you, what would it look like? Start there, and then you can level up later.
That's a great way to think about it. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts about this process. Obviously, you've had a variety of experiences here, so it's great to have you be our test dummy.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I do.
So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you are thinking about publishing a book, maybe you're working on writing a book right now, then leave a comment below. Tell us what it's about, and tell us, if you're thinking about self-publishing. Also, if you have any questions, post them down below. I know some things about this, and I guess we could ask Pat, right?
Yeah, well, we're going to be actually publishing more content about publishing books on my website at smartpassiveincome.com in the future too, because I get a lot of people asking as well.
Okay, great. So your website, Smart Passive Income, and you also have some other ways that people can find you.
Yeah, YouTube channel, youtube.com/Pat Flynn.
There will be a link down below for actually all of these books if you're interested in finding them. Superfans is Pat's most recent book, and I've just started to read it. He gave me a copy yesterday or the day
Yeah.
before.
Oh, that was the other thing. I gave away copies to everybody
Yeah.
who came to my event, and
Yeah.
that's another cool thing you could do with a book.
And so I just started to read it. I can already tell that it is the best book you have written.
Thank you.
And it seems really, really good. It has some excellent recommendations from some high-level people in it, so I'm sure it will be excellent. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Be sure to go over to Pat's channel, check his channel out. He also has an awesome podcast if you're interested in learning anything about.
Business, entrepreneurship, and balancing that and the life that you want to live.
Okay, then go check him out. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys again soon.